I read 10 books in the month of March, so let's talk about all of them. In no particular order, we're going to start off with Edgedancer by Sanderson. This is a novella that takes place after the second book in the Stormlight Archive series. And this one was really cute. It was basically about a character named Lift, who is the most chaotic character I've had the pleasure of knowing, which is amazing. At first, I honestly didn't really like her when she was introduced in Words of Radiance, but she really did grow on me because of this novella. She's so funny and she's so cute, and she's very honorable, and she really does care about people, and yeah, she's honestly a really great character. And so this novella just kind of gives you a bit more details into her story. There's a really good interaction with her and a very, very important character who I won't spoil who it is. Kind of spoils the whole Stormlight Archive series, but this one was excellent. I had a lot of fun with it. At the beginning, it was a little bit slow, but once it hit like the middle part, I was like, I'm so into this. And so I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I also read Words of Radiance. This is the second book in the Stormlight Archive series. This one had me screaming. This one had me like freaking out every single page. This is like probably the best book, at least one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. It is so, so good. The plot twists like mess up your brain, like you're like on the edge of your seat, you're like sweating, like it's so well written, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. If I could marry a book, I would marry Words of Radiance. That's how much I love it. It's just so good. Like words just don't do it justice of just how epic and well done this book is. And so as you can guess, I definitely gave this 5 out of 5 stars. If there was a higher, maybe I can give it 10 out of 5 stars. Like it's just that good. I also read The Way of Kins by Sanderson. This is the first in the Stormlight Archive series. Kind of funny we ended up going backwards here, but yeah, it's so funny because when I first started reading this book, I thought it was really big, but now I'm like holding it in my hands. I'm like, this is like a tiny book compared to the rest of the series. This one was good. I really enjoyed it. It had really good world building. It had really good character introduction. It was really just setting the scene for the epic story that is the Stormlight Archive series. And it was great. It was like a little slow at times, but overall it was a really good read. I had so much fun with this, and I'm so happy that I'm reading these books right now. I'm currently reading the third one in the series as I'm recording this. And yeah, I enjoyed this one. Because it was a little bit slow, I did give it 4 out of 5 stars, but Words of Radiance, whew, that book. For my local book club, Yellowface by R.F. Kuang was the book for the month of March. And so this book was one of those books that I'm like, I heard about it, wasn't really sure if I wanted to read it or not, because I'm really more like a fantasy romance kind of girl, but book club said to, and so I obey book club laws. So I read this book and I was pleasantly surprised at how much I absolutely devoured it. It's really short, so like you can really finish this in like a day or two if you really want to. And it was so good. It touched on a lot of really interesting, like unsettling themes. It basically is about a girl named June, and she takes this manuscript from her famous friend Athena, and her friend ends up like dying, and she steals a manuscript and she publishes it as her own. And what I thought was really interesting about this is just like how much the character believes that what she's doing is the right thing, but there's a lot of like cultural appropriation, there's a lot of racism, there's microaggressions, like everything. There's also like really interesting like insights into like what it's like to be in the publishing industry and how certain people are affected because of like their ethnicity. So this book was really well done. It was also like oddly funny at times as well. It's honestly beautiful. Like this is probably the best R.F. Kuang book that I've ever read, and she's just really great. It was just like, yeah, I'm speechless. I gave this 5 stars. And then I also read The Fox Wife by Yangsze Choo, and this one was fun as well. It's basically has a lot of great lore about like Japanese and Chinese fox kind of like mythology, which I thought was really interesting, like fox spirits and fox gods, and like this is something that I honestly don't really know that well. Like, I mean, I mentioned in my video about The Fox Wife that my first introduction to anything fox spirit related was because of the show Naruto. But that's about the extent of my knowledge. So this book was really great because like it kind of educated me as well in like kind of like what was happening during the time period of like the 1600s, I believe it was, and like there's like fox spirits, but there's also fox gods, and so I thought that it was really well done. And they also had some really great like descriptions throughout the book, and so it basically follows along like 2 characters. There's Snow, who is a woman and she can change into a fox. Well, I mean, she's a fox that can change into a woman. And she's hunted down a guy who killed her very young daughter. It was a photographer, killed the fox, and it was a bad time. And so she's basically been hunting him down. And then there's another character named Bao, who's a private investigator, and he's looking into like the murder of like a local courtesan girl, and then that kind of like expands to a greater kind of investigation, and so you can guess like their paths cross and stuff. And so it was really great. I really enjoyed it. I really loved just like learning about the culture a little bit more throughout the book, while also being invested in like the murder mystery story of it. I think that it did fall flat a little bit towards the end, so I did give The Foxwife a 4 out of 5 stars, but it was definitely a really good and fun read. Next up, we got Carley Fortune's Meet Me at the Lake. This one was really great in terms of like Canadian representation. As a Canadian, it's very rare that I see anything that is representing Canada in like books. I find a lot of the times it's like America or like London, like those parts of the world, but all the other parts of the world you don't really see, or at least I haven't come across it in my reading endeavors. But yeah, it was really great just to have Canada represented in like a little book. The book itself, it was okay. It wasn't the best thing I ever read, but it was like a nice brain cleanser book. It's basically about a woman named Fern, and there's like 2 timelines happening. There's timelines from like many years ago, like decades ago, and then the present timeline. And so she and this guy Will, they have a really epic, amazing like one day together, but they're both in relationships at that time. And so they obviously like nothing happens because like cheaters suck. And so they just kind of like hang out and they really enjoy each other's company. And they promise to like see each other in a year. And then Fern shows up, Will doesn't show up. She's pretty heartbroken because she had a really great time with him, and she was single the following year, and she was like, I'm gonna ask him out, like all this kind of stuff. Doesn't happen. Many years later, he ends up getting hired to work at the kind of like resort that she works at. So her mom passes away and she's now kind of handling the resort and trying to make sure things are running. She's trying to figure out like, should I sell it or should I help run it? And so before the mom died, she actually hired Will to come in as like a consultant. And so that's where the story, like pretty much what it's about. And it's just like kind of them interacting. So you get 2 different time periods, which I really liked because you get to see like what it was like before, what it's like now. The writing did fall flat in a lot of parts, in my opinion, and there were some parts that like I was just kind of like a little bit bored about, but it was the past stuff that I thought was better written than the present. It was still a decent like brain cleanser book, which is what I wanted it to be, because I didn't want to think, I just wanted to read and enjoy the vibes of it. And so this was vibes only kind of book, and so I gave it about 3 out of 5 stars. First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. This book had a lot of potential, but it wasn't for me. It's basically about a woman who her entire job is to take on a different identity and get something that her boss has hired her for. So sometimes it's like a thumb drive, sometimes it's like a piece of jewelry or an artwork of sorts. And so she just basically like infiltrates her way in there and just kind of like schmoozes with people, gets what she needs, and then like pieces out. And so it has a really great premise, and it was well developed. It was a really well done story. But the thing for me is like I didn't really care about it, unfortunately. Like I had really high expectations for this book, and I really wanted to like it so badly, but I think it was probably just like outside of the domain of stuff that I typically enjoy. Like I read it because like I heard it was really good and it was like a little bit out of my comfort zone, but as I learned with Yellowface, I'm like, you know what, like let's do it, let's get outside of the comfort zone. But yeah, this just didn't do it for me. But if you like that kind of story, I think it would really do it for you. I think that you would enjoy it. Just personally for me, I didn't like it, but it was well done, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I also read Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera, and I was getting incredibly confused because I read this one and then immediately after I read Listen for the Lie, and so I kept on mixing up the names for the longest time. But yeah, Listen for the Lie. This one I really enjoyed. I think about it actually more often than I should, so I'm considering raising my rating on it just because of how much fun I had with it. But it's basically about a woman named Lucy, and she can't remember if she killed her best friend. That's like such a good hook, right? And so there's like no evidence that she actually did it, and so she actually moves away from that town because, you know, everyone thinks she's a murderer. And then 5 years later, a podcaster with the title Listen for the Lie starts a true crime kind of like series on this unsolved murder. And so obviously like Lucy's like, oh, this guy's like ruining my life, like what's going on, like come on, stop that, like I don't want to be the bad guy. And she also doesn't want to remember what happened. And so some events ensue, and she actually does end up going back to the town where it all happened, and she does make a couple of run-ins with the podcaster guy, and eventually they're kind of like solving it together to find out like, did Lucy kill her best friend, or like what happened? And this book, I had so much fun reading it. It was good. It has a lot of good dark humor in it as well, which is a pleasant surprise because you don't really see like murder mysteries that are also like somehow funny at the same time, but in like a tasteful way. So I had a lot of fun reading this one. I did give it 4 out of 5 stars, but the more I think about it, it's probably like a 4.5 out of 5 stars because I'm still thinking about it, and it's been like a couple weeks since I read this one. It was good. I also read A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber, and this is the 3rd in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, and I was so disappointed with the ending of this book. Obviously I'm not going to spoil it for you, but this series I was absolutely obsessed with, and when we get to the last book here that I'm going to talk about after I'm done talking about this one, because everything's all backwards for some reason in my pile, but yeah, this one, it was really good up until the ending, but like the stakes of this book and the beautiful like magical writing of this book, and then you also get like the dual POVs kind of going on, which is really unique for this series because it never had that before. And so I don't want to spoil it, but there was some really great parts of this book, and so I did give it a 4 out of 5 stars because I still really enjoyed it. It was just the ending that I'm still really mad about. And maybe it's because I haven't read Caraval, which apparently is like the original series, and this is like the spin-off, but maybe once I read Caraval, like it'll make sense, or maybe there's gonna be more series for this, but the ending was just really incomplete for me. The Ballad of Neverafter by Stephanie Garber. This is the 2nd in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. This book gave me so many emotions. I almost threw it across the room a couple of times, but in like a good way. This book was so much fun. I'm obsessed with Jax and Evangeline, like especially in this book. I have so much love for this book. Like this series is just so much fun. So Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, if you haven't read it, so I read the previous, like I read the first book last month, and then I finished the other 2 this month. And basically what it's about is a woman named Evangeline, and she is really naive, and she really believes in that happily ever after, like that love conquers all kind of things. And the man she loves is marrying her sister, and she's not happy about it. And so she tries to stop it by making a deal with a fate named Jax. And things don't go the way she wants. Everybody turns to stone. She tries to save them, and she turns into stone, and like stuff happens. And so now she's stuck in this deal where she has to give like 3 kisses to people picked by Jax. And so she's kind of like stuck in that kind of world. But then yeah, I don't want to explain it, like I don't want to spoil it, because like when I start to explain it, I get like really excited about it because I love the series. But this was so good. And like, okay, the thing about the series though as well is like it's nothing unique. There's nothing like super amazing and super special about it, but like the writing is just so like magical. It kind of gives me that like Disney feeling, like when I was a kid and I discovered Disney for the first time, and it like makes your heart feel like whole and complete and warm and fuzzy. This series does that, and this series was so good except for the ending. And I just love Ballad of Neverafter so much. This is like Words of Radiance. I would also marry this book. I would marry this book 100 times over. It's, yeah, I give it 5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, these were all of the lovely books that I read in the month of March. I'd say it's a pretty successful March because there were no books that I didn't not like. Like First Lie Wins, I didn't really like that much, and Meet Me at the Lake, I didn't like it like that much, but I didn't hate them. Like I didn't hate those books. I wasn't like, ugh, I don't want to read this book anymore. I want to throw it across the room because it sucks. Like there's none of that, which is nice. So I would say this was a very successful March that I've had with these books. So if you're interested in any of these books, I do have videos on every single one of the books in my hands here, which is fun, of course. Well, actually, this video doesn't come out until after this video comes out, but still, there will be a video on this one. So if you're interested in any of these types of books, you can tell these are the types of books that I really love and which books I'm really passionate about. And if you're passionate about those, or if you like to watch people read books, definitely hit subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the bell notification. That way you get notified anytime a new video comes out. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!